And so I thought, well, rather than you guys paying me to consult, I would just give you some of these productivity tips that I've collected over the years, and you'll be faster and better, and you'll write better code, and then you'll just call me for the hard stuff. So let's get right into it, because like I said, we only have 45 minutes. So the first one is some query shortcuts. This is a SQL Server Management Studio tip. Somebody here today has been hanging out with me today. Bobo, where's Bobo? Is he here? He's not even here yet. Anyway, so he's been hanging out with me today, and he started giving me some tips, and this is one of the tips from him. So if you go to Tools and Options, and I apologize for the resolution, so I'm going to zoom in real quick. You see this? If you click Keyboard, and you put Query Shortcuts, you have 3 out of the box. Do you see those? You have SP Help, SP Who, and SP Log. If you hit Control-1, you'll go to SP Who. Who uses that? A lot of you, good. So you can add your own, and you can say select top 100 asterisk from, or select count from, and if you hit Control-4 or Control-5, you'll execute that. Now what's cool about that is this. If I go into databases like T-SQL 2012, open up tables, just open up a new query window, drag like the accounts, highlight it just like that, and hit Control-4. Oh, I need to be in the right database. First time to close out. Control-4, there's my top 100. Control-5, there's my count. So you guys are doing counts all day long. You're typing that out all day long, right? No reason to do that. No reason to select, the top, whatever. Just put that into your query shortcuts, and you're good to go. Already helpful? Okay, let's go for some low-hanging fruit. These things a lot of you know, but I just want to get them out of the way. The first one is, if you create a table in SSMS, and you don't see it in IntelliSense, like you say select asterisk from, and it doesn't pop up, just Control-Shift-R, and it'll refresh your cache. So Control-Shift-R. The next one is, just when you're in your results, you can just Control-R the results away real quick. Which is super useful. Okay. Oh, here's copy and paste a line without selection. So if I come here and see the select star, you notice how it's not selected? If I just Control-C and then go to a new line and Control-V, I can copy and paste without selecting the entire line. So the cursor just has to be anywhere on the line. Control-C will copy the line, Control-V will paste it. So that works in every Microsoft tool. That works in Visual Studio, that works in all the tools. Next, so let's talk about commenting. Take this line, Control-K-C, comment. Control-K-U, uncomment. Same with bookmarking. Control-K-B, and I can, I want to show Control-K-B in a second. Control-K-K and Control-K-N. So that's a bookmark. I don't know if you can see that, but if you're dealing with like a 500 line server procedure, and which by the way is a terrible practice. I should never be dealing with a 500 line server procedure, but if you are, because I know it happens. And you need to keep your place in code at several key points, you can just bookmark, and then Control-K-N will navigate you through your bookmarks, so you're always at the same place. Super useful for long procedures. Okay, that's it. That's a low-hanging fruit. Code snippets are super useful. Who here has used code snippets before? A couple of you. Okay, some of you might like this though, so this is kind of cool. So if you're back at SSMS, you can, excuse me, you can Control-K-X actually. If you Control-K-X, let's say that you want to create a table, open up table and create table. The table template just comes up here for you, right? That's kind of useful. People like this. People use this for creating indexes. You see people use code snippets all the time for things like that. What you might not have known is that you can create your own code snippet. And the way you do that is you go to Control-K-V, that brings up the code snippet manager up here. And what you'll notice is that these paths are kind of weird, right? So if I open up login, you'll see create SQL authentication login. You see that path? Okay, that path is pretty long. So we're going to take that path and we're going to put it inside File Explorer. And then what you'll see is just a bunch of snippet files. These files look kind of weird. But you see these files? This XML file, basically what you're going to see is the SQL down here on line 34. Do you see that SQL right there? And then on lines 22 through 32, you'll see parameters. So what will happen is this login name and password will get inserted in the code snippet when you start typing it out. Right? Now these out-of-the-box ones are interesting, but what I think is even cooler is if you just make your own. So you could take this and then put it in, and let me show you where. Put it in the My Code Snippets folder. It's a different folder. It's in an entirely different path. You can't even find it from the other path. Super confusing. But if you look at that folder, you can take that code snippet that I just showed you that's out of the box, and you can make your own. Let me show you one I made. So here's my SQL. Select star from sales.customers. See, I see you guys do this all the time. Somebody calls on the phone and says, hey, I need to know this customer such and such, whatever, whatever. And I watch you guys, I know you guys type it like 1,000 times because you type it so well, right? You're just like, I'm like, why are they typing that 50 times a day? So take these queries that you write 50 times a day and save it in that My Code Snippets place using the Code Snippet Manager. And what that does is when you Control-K, Control-X, you do My Code Snippets, and you can say which one you want. I named it wrong. Let's go here so you can see it. My Code Snippets, I named it that. And it says, oh, you want a specific customer, which one do you want? I want customer ID 5, or something like that. And it goes right to where the parameter is. You just replace the parameter, and you're good to go. So all these queries you guys type all the time, you should be using, like, I should see 50 code snippets the next time I talk to you guys. Useful yet? Is this useful? Have you learned something already? We're only 5 minutes in. Okay, that's good. So the next one's SSIS. And you know what? I thought I had that project open already. I do. Okay. So here's SSIS. And you can see, like right here, where I have like a green means success and a red means failure, you know, working through my SSIS workflow. I don't know if you guys can see that, so I'll scroll in. See that green and red? That's great, unless you're colorblind. And then if you're colorblind, guess what the most common form of colorblindness is? What's the most common form?
Red-green.
It's red-green colorblindness, isn't it? Yeah. So, terrible. Why is that so terrible? So, let's see. Show precedent constraint labels. So where I went to Tools, Options. I went to Integration Services Designer underneath Business Intelligence Designers, and I just clicked this button, and then it just labels that as a success arrow, so I can see it. So if you're colorblind, you know what? You should do this anyway. Like, you know, it's just like maybe a little bit of empathy. Okay, so here's the next tip. Who here writes reports for a living? Only 10% of you? I find that hard to believe. Nobody else writes reports? You guys don't get asked to do this? You guys have terrible jobs. Okay, so reporting is great. Anybody who writes reports for a living or does some part of reporting knows that it is an awesome way to meet the CEO. So 5 minutes of report design, well, it just looks really cool. And so let me show you this ugly report right here. See this report right here? This is a standard report. I play it, you know, customer list. You know, no big deal, right? Who has a company who has a cool logo? You do. What company do you work for? Sendent?
Senda.
Can you spell that for me?
S-U-N-G-A-R.
Okay, S-U-N-G-A-R-E. Is that right? Oh, like that?
Yeah.
I must have terrible ears. I'm sorry. Okay, you like this? This is the logo you like. All right. Who else has one? Do it again?
JavaSolutions.com.
Spell it.
CHANTLER.
C-H-A-N-T-L-E-R.
Solutions.com.
Like this? Oh, that's your LinkedIn. You're going to give me right to the URL. Oh, right here?
Yeah.
There we go. This is you're hacking your own company.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
That's
So
a more cool logo.
that's the more. All right. Well, I guess I walked into that one, didn't I? Okay. So this is your PNG, right? Right. All right. So if you guys, so right now let's go ahead and save that. I'm going to go ahead and save that image on my desktop. And then I wish I had a JPEG of that. I think it will work. Have you guys used Lavish Bootstrap before? So in Lavish Bootstrap, what you can do, let me bring that up. The internet. Hey, you guys, get off Facebook. No more YouTube. No more streaming. I can't believe Lavish is so slow right now. I don't know. I'm going to have to skip this tip in a second if it doesn't come out. I don't have time for this. Okay. I'm not sure. Uh-oh. Lavish is down. This is not me. You know what? I've never seen Lavish go down before. Let's see if there's a... Oh, wow. Yeah, maybe I have, but look, I can show you what it does. So I don't know why Lavish is doing this. That's really sad. But what Lavish does is it takes a picture from a URL, just like that image that you just gave me, right? And it breaks down the hex of every color it sees in the image. And so it puts that hex in just a color panel for you. And so you can take that hex, not only can you put the logo in the report in 2 seconds, but you can take that hex and just start making it your alternating color, make it your header color, so that all the coloring on the report matches the logo that you just made, right? 5 seconds, takes 5 seconds, your reports look like 10 times better. If Lavish were up, you would applaud. You would think that was great. 99 out of 100 developers use the default color palette. I don't know why they do. They're not all colorblind. So I don't know why they do that. Okay, tip number 3, the right way to find a hardware problem. So this is like YouTube, right? We just keep changing topics. So here's our next topic. This is good because you guys can like zone out, think about your girlfriend, what you're gonna eat tonight, and then come back. Okay. So the right way to find performance problems is this. You guys probably know these tools, but I bet you didn't know that you could use them together. So the first tool, and I'm going to close this because it's going to confuse me the whole time. The first tool is Profiler. You guys use Profiler all the time, right? So Profiler, what does Profiler do? No one knows what Profiler does? We're about to change topics. What does it do? Yeah, it shows the load on the server. It shows every single transaction that happens on the server, right? Okay. So that's one thing. The next one is perfmon. What does perfmon do? Monitors what kind of perform? Thank you for that. Yeah, it monitors perform. Yeah. What kind of performance? What's that? Yeah, I/O, CPU, memory, right, hardware, right? It looks at hardware and tells you, how many megabytes are you transmitting through the I/O, right? What's process utilization? What's buffer cache hit ratio, right? Yep. Okay. So what we can do here is we can just create a data collector set and start that data collector set. And now that it's logging my hardware, it's just sampling my hardware, making sure it's running okay. And then at the same time, I can go back to Profiler, and I can just start my trace. And then what I can do is I can just create like an artificial load, and I'll go to SSMS and I'll create my load here. I've got a Cartesian product, that's why it's like taking a while. Okay, once I've got the load, then I come back to Profiler and turn it off. We can make sure that this is off. I think that's going to be off in a second. Let's go to Profiler, turn that off. Now I'm going to go ahead and save that trace. Put it on my desktop, which is called SQL in the City. Now, there's a bug in Profiler. You have to close it and open it again for it to work. So open up that SQL in the City trace, click File, and then what I'm going to do is click Import Performance Data right here. And what I'm going to find is I'm going to find that log that saves by default into a folder called perflogs. And it says, what do you want to look at? And I'll say, well, I want to look at like processor utilization. Percent processor time, is that good? Yeah, that's good. Click OK. And what it does is it maps my trace with how the hardware is functioning. So I can see what the hardware looked like when a query was executing. And not only that, but I can click into this. So if I see a query with a long duration, like, hey, what's this one? This is 1 millisecond. I can see what the hardware looked like when that query was executing. And I can do the opposite too. If I see a spike like this spike here, I can click on that, and it will take me to the exact point in time. See, what I want you to see is, you see this time right here? Do you see, oh, you can't see this line. Boom. Do you see this time right here? Those are mapping together. That's what it's tying up. So the next time somebody says, why is the server slow? You're going to be able to answer that. You probably won't. You'll be better equipped to answer that. Oh, this is not a SQL tip. This is just my tip. If you need to pick a font size for a presentation, take the average age of your audience and half it. Right. So you know, if you guys look like you're, I guess I could use 10-point font with you guys. Okay, tip number 5. I see this a lot, and the reason why I include this tip is because of how often it's come up in consulting, and this is why I mention it. And that is, when I ask DBAs, how many heaps do you have? They always say, none. No heaps, no heaps. So, so we run this query really quick, and it shows me that they're probably wrong. There are probably a lot of heaps. But adding a clustered index is like giving SQL Server an on switch 95% of the time. And 5% of the time, it's the opposite. But 95% of the time, it's going to need an on switch for you. So just make sure that all your heaps are clustered indexed. Get rid of those heaps. The proper way to run an SSIS package, here's tip number 6. So if I go back, this task runs going to mess me up the whole time. So look at these SSIS packages over here. Remember the colorblind demo? You know I have three packages I can run. Who here writes SSIS packages? Way more than write reports. So you've got like half a job. So in SSIS, how many different ways can I execute this package? I can click that VCR play button on the top, can't I? Right? That'll work. That green button. Okay. VCR play button. You know what? I did this to a group of high school students, and they looked at me like, what is he talking about? And then I said, YouTube play button. They're like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I'm dating myself already. No, terrible. Okay, so I can click the green start button, right? I can launch the package that way, right? I can also go up the debug menu. I can say start debugging. I can hit F5, right? That'll start, right? But don't do any of those things. The proper way to start an SSIS package is to right-click the package and click Execute Package. That's the right way. You're thinking, well, what, Ike? Why? Well, how can you be so general about this? Well, SSIS typically, not always, but typically follows a pattern. What's the first thing an SSIS package typically does? Truncate table, right? Clears out, we're about to load something. So let's clear it out, and then we're going to load it. So if you have the wrong package set as your startup object, and you hit that green arrow, and you're writing one package, and you hit the green arrow and start a different package, well, now you're just waiting, because you just truncated the tables you're probably using, right? And now you're going to wait the 10 minutes or an hour until that package finishes. And it only took me doing this about 400 times before I figured out there was a better way of doing it. So right-click on the package in Solution Explorer and go to Execute Package. And if you get in the habit of doing that every time, you'll never execute the wrong package by hitting that green arrow. So just get in the habit of doing that. Oh, here's a T-SQL tip. No reason to use is-null anymore. I don't know how many times I've seen is-null. I replace it every single time. And let me just clear out some of this so that it's a little clearer here. We'll bring that back later as we need it. Okay, so real quick, is my font okay? Can you guys see okay? No? Oh, sorry guys. Let me, real quickly, I'll do this as quick as I can. Let me just go to fonts and colors and bring that back up to like, maybe an 18 would be better, yeah. Better?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go into sales customers and I'm going to just make some null values here. And then I'm just going to show you those null values in the title column. So notice that down here in the title column, every once in a while we have a null value here, right? See those null values right there. Boom. So your boss comes to you and she says, hey, I need a phone list of customers for an address for envelopes, right? We're printing stuff or something like that, I don't know. So you say, oh, I can do that, contact name, contact title, and you just start concatenating. And when you concatenate, it works great. You think you've got it, except every once in a while, you get line 15, null. And why do we get that? Yeah, concatenate to a null is null, right? Right, I know. So then we start using is-null to like litter our code and say, okay, you know, the problem with this, the problem with line 15, the thing that I hate about it, is it doesn't tell me what's null. You know, if I've added 15 things together, and I've done it many times, I never know where the null value is coming from to give me that. So what does that mean that I have to do? It means that I'm is-nulling everything, because I don't know where it's coming from. So is-null, is-null, is-null creates super ugly code when you have to do it 15 times, right? Super, you know, and it's like long, like you're scrolling everywhere and you see is-nulls littered everywhere. So instead of using is-null, new with SQL Server 2012 is concat. And concat works the way concat works in other languages. But it's also like in C#, like formatting a string. But basically, you just throw in a whole bunch of strings in there, and it will concat them, and if it finds a null, it just returns an empty string for that particular field. So you can get rid of the is-null, it's a little terser, a little easier to read, and then when we execute this, look, line 15 with no title, that worked. That worked. Good. Concat. Don't use is-null anymore. So over, old school. Tip number 8, how to search schema. This is like one of my favorite tips because it's right here in SSMS and very few people use it. So if you hit F7, you get Object Explorer details. And if I want to look for like the customers table, I can just type in customers. Uh-oh, it didn't find anything. Why? Well, guess what? It will use wildcards. So you can do %, and you can see everything with customers in the name. So if I'm looking for a table really quick or something like that, it's super useful to just give me customers, and you can right-click here and you can say synchronize, and it will take you right to the table in Object Explorer. So you can take a look at the definition. Now that's a good tool, and it's okay like if you're in a clean SSMS and you don't really have any tools installed. But I love SQL Search. SQL Search is a Redgate tool, and I'm not trying to sell you anything because it's completely free. In fact, if you just type in Redgate SQL Search, there it is. Great. So SQL Search, I don't even have to use the wildcard. I can just click enter. And look, the thing I like about this is I don't have to go to Object Explorer. It gives me the definition right in the window. And then the other thing I like about it is Object Explorer Details, which comes out of the box. That doesn't do column searches. It only does object name searches, which is like typically what happens to me is somebody says, hey, where are we getting that phone number from? I have no idea. So I just need to go look through all the tables of that phone number, kind of, drop that. Really useful if you're a report author too, and you're on like a 400 table schema and you don't know where anything is. SQL Search will save you tons and tons of time. But you don't even have to do that. You can also just write the code yourself if you want. And sometimes I do resort to doing this, particularly if I am not with SSMS. Like if I am, for whatever reason, I'm in a different tool, sometimes it's just really helpful to know, that you can query sys.all SQL modules. And the column you want is definition like, and then same wildcards apply, right? So you can get the object name and the definition. And when you execute that, you can find every sort of procedure or table with customer in it. So that's pretty useful. Sys.all SQL modules, and look for the definition. Save you a lot of time sometimes. How you doing? Raise your hand if you learned something already. There we go. You didn't know that before you sat down, and all of a sudden you put the good use of 25 minutes. Okay. So windowing functions are pretty cool. Now I don't want to talk about the complexity of windowing functions. Like, we could talk about this at great length, right? And even Ike Ben Gone, I don't know if you know Ike, but he's the T-SQL master. The guy's forgotten more about T-SQL than I've ever known. And he writes a book called High Performance Window Functions with T-SQL 2012. Great book. If you haven't read it, I'd suggest it. But when people talk about these functions, they emphasize like rolling month comparisons or moving averages. They emphasize the difficult things that it can do. And then I see developers' eyes just glaze over like, I don't care. I just do simple stuff, right? But windowing functions help you with small things, easy things. And I want to take you back all the way to when you were brand new to T-SQL, right when you were very brand new. And your boss comes to you and she says, I want to see a report of every customer, their total freight, and the detail of the freight all in one report. And you think, oh, okay, I have my Teach Yourself SQL in 10 Minutes book. I think I can write this. And so what you do is you say, okay, I think the freight is in the orders table. And so you think, oh, is freight down there? Yep, there's freight right there. There's the detail. So you're half done. And you think, okay, she wanted customer ID and freight. Boom, I did it. Now they just want the aggregate. So I just want to sum those two things together. And you execute that, and you get this error, which I've never gotten before, but maybe you have. It says, sales.customer ID is invalid in select list because it is not in an aggregate function or a group by clause. And you think, well, this should work. Like, obviously. Shouldn't it obviously know what I want on this report, right? I want the customer and the freight and the total freight, right? Why doesn't that work? And then you go back to the book and realize you have a lot to learn. So you think, oh, they talk about this group by clause. Okay, so I'll put group by. That worked. So I've got customer ID and the total freight right there. So customer ID 1 has a total freight of $237.58. And you think, perfect. Now that I know how group by works, I'm going to add freight back in. And the minute you do that, it says, column level freight is invalid in the select list because it's not contained in an aggregate function or group by clause. And you think, okay, I've got this. I'll just put freight in the group by clause. And when you do that, you get something totally useless. You lose the total freight. And you think, I hate SQL. So after a lot of reading about derived queries and subqueries and common table expressions and views, and I don't know how you chose to solve it, but you might have chosen to solve it with this 12-line query using a CTE, where finally you can join that together and get cust ID, freight, and total freight. And then you're a SQL master and you're amazing. Control R to get rid of those results. So CTEs are a big improvement, and we're very grateful for that. But what I wanted to emphasize is this right here, which is rather than use the group by clause, you can say, give me customer ID freight, and then sum the freight over partition by the customer ID. That's it. You're basically telling the aggregate what rows to roll over when it executes. And then you execute that, and you get the exact same results in 3 lines of code, which, now, here's the reason why I'm telling you this is because I work with you guys all the time, and I know that if you've been doing SQL for 10, 15 years, you might not bother learning windowing functions. If you've been only doing it for a year, they're like, yeah, I read that in the Teach Yourself SQL in 10 Minutes book. Like, I knew that. Why don't these guys know that, right? The younger developers took to it like that because it allows you to use SQL the way you intended to use it when you were first learning it. So this is worth relearning. It's worth opening up the book again and getting good at this because it's very, very powerful. And if you need help, that Ike Ben Gone book is super useful. And hopefully that sparks your interest enough to do it. SSDT. So Bobo, who I talked about earlier, is he here yet? Did he come in? Is he just going to be quiet? He's probably back there. He just doesn't want me to point him out. So he likes SSDT. We were talking about that earlier. But SSDT has something pretty cool. Here's the new tip. It has, right up here, this quick launch. Right up there. Do you see that? Okay. So if I said, hey, enable line numbers, I don't know how many times I've ever had to go into Visual Studio and enable line numbers. And I'm like digging around here. What is it? Text editor, all languages. There it is, line numbers. And I check that, and now I get line numbers again. But the great thing about this quick launch up here is I can just type in line numbers, and it takes me right to it. So this is just like on the Mac, Spotlight Search. And then they've been incorporating this in Windows 8, and then Microsoft's adding these search options in all of their products. So all that to say, if you've been upgrading products, pay attention to that upper right corner. If there's a box, play with it, because it'll do something cool. Okay. Scripting. So I'm here to advocate PowerShell in 2 seconds, and this is tip number 11. So Grant was up here at a SQL in the City a year ago, and he said something. Is Grant in the room? I don't know if I can quote him. Can I misquote him? Okay. So Grant was up here at a SQL in the City a year ago, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said, you can get good at boring, repetitive tasks, or you can get good at scripting. Pick one. And I thought, oh wow. So, and he was advocating PowerShell. So he talked about PowerShell a lot, and you know what, that kind of started me on a PowerShell journey, which I wouldn't call myself a master at PowerShell, but I'm better at it than I was before. And what happened was I started playing with PowerShell, and then Microsoft called, and Microsoft said, hey, do you know PowerShell? And I'm like, yeah, I do. Barely. But I'm like, yeah, I do. I use PowerShell to bring up a 3-node always-on cluster in Azure, in Microsoft Azure. 16 tera of disks per node, automatic database creation, and they could bring those clusters up and down at will for a project that we did for Azure for elasticity. I can't tell you the project because it's not released yet, but they wanted an elastic method of bringing these servers up to handle load. So they needed them up like in 10 minutes. So I tell you that story so that you know how powerful PowerShell can be. Like, they didn't touch anything. They double-clicked a button, and 3 VMs came up, you know, Windows clustering, always on, replicating flawlessly 10 minutes later. I mean, that is power, right? So if you have something that you have to do every single day, and you hate doing it, it might be worth it to learn PowerShell. Like, if you look at what I have here, excuse me, this is a quick PowerShell command. Now, you don't have to read this, and I can't teach you PowerShell in 3 minutes, but I bet if you looked at that, you could get a pretty good idea of what I was doing here. What do you think it does?
It reads all the event logs.
It reads the event log in this server, yeah? Yeah, tell me events out of the event log, that's right. Look for an error within the last 96 hours, right? So I want to know this week if there were some errors for SQL. Now, how often have you guys opened up the event log and done that, right? You don't care about the other 5 million messages there. You just want to know whether was there a SQL error there. So what I can do is just run it. I can run it in PowerShell. This is the ISE. This is the interactive debugger for PowerShell. And I just hit play. And it just shows me every error super fast. Believe it or not, you can remote execute PowerShell. In 2 seconds, I can change this script to query every SQL server in my organization and tell me per server what SQL errors were critical for the last 48 hours. 2 seconds of work. Super easy. So just some examples of why it's worthwhile to learn PowerShell. So I hope that sparks your interest in it and you begin to enjoy it. It's not going away. All this DevOps stuff, it's PowerShell this and PowerShell that, and Microsoft's just making it more and more powerful. Tip number 12, tip DD. What am I done, by the way? I think I'm done in 10 minutes, aren't I? Yeah, 10 minutes? Okay, I'm going to skip this one. Prettify. We'll talk about that later. So I've had to troubleshoot this query before. This query goes off into oblivion. Look at that query. Why am I having to deal with this query? It's because somebody concatenated it into ADO.NET or whatever they tried to do. And I don't know what they were thinking, but they didn't give me any help here to try to figure out what went wrong. So if you use SQL prompt, it's just Control-KY. Control-KY will format that for you. Save yourself 20 minutes. Just get an auto format so you can see the query. If you don't have SQL prompt, because you have to pay for that, you can use a free one online. It's, thanks to Steve Jones, it's the SQL Server Central Prettifier. Where we can just paste this, preserve indenting, and prettify. And now, a little bit different formatting there, but I think that formatting is incorrect, but that might be my problem. So this prettifier I like because I blog. And when I blog, now Blogger has like, and do you know that if you go do WordPress or Blogger, you can do code markup, right? You can just say, hey, this is T-SQL, it will do all the highlighting for you. So if you're not doing that in your blog post, 1 second, and your blog posts look way better. But if you don't have a platform like WordPress or Blogger and you want to do this, you can just use the prettifier, and the prettifier will give you the source HTML. And that source HTML you can just put right in your blog post, and it's all pretty. People think you used SSMS to write this. It's super cool. So this has saved me so much time in my life. Like, I should pay for it. If they charge me, I would pay for it. Easily one of the best tools I've used. Oh, execute. So tip number 4, execute scripts over multiple servers. So I'm pretending, if you are in SSMS and you go to View, Registered Servers. So I don't know if you use this box here, but let me blow this up for you. So if you have 30 servers that you administrate, thank you. 30 servers that you administrate, so you're always adding them to Object Explorer constantly. But you can just keep them into registered servers, and registered servers will let you create folders so you can group them. You can say these 5 servers are for the BI team, these 12 servers are for transaction, my intranet application, these 3 servers are useless, don't ever look at them, right? So you can just keep them in groups by folders right here. But one of the cool things you can do is you can just right-click on an entire group and say New Query. The bar turns pink. You see, I'll give you that tip in a second, but you see how the bar up top turned from gray to pink? Kind of brownish. Okay, watch this. So select star from sys.databases, and then I execute this. And it gives me all the databases, but it adds a column right here called server name. And it shows me development or production right here. So that was from right-clicking in registered servers and doing a new query and watching the bar turn pink. That's super useful. You can run alter statements. Like I've had in an emergency a performance problem where I had to give an index out to like 20 servers. And the reason why I'm managing 20 servers or more is because a lot of my customers are multi-tenant, right? They have like a server per 100 customers. And so I've got all these servers out there that need an index in an emergency, and this is a great way to drop all the tables. Oh, so here's another one, by the way. So this tip isn't even in the slide deck, but I love it. If I go to Tools Options, what I can do underneath Designers, is it under Designers? Where is it? See, I'm going off script, and so I'm going to get in trouble here. It might actually be under. Where?
Use the search corner.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It might have be text editor actually.
Object Explorer, I think, if it's the thing.
It's the status bar.
Yeah, Object Explorer.
Where do you see it?
Very bottom.
Oh yeah, there it is. Thank you. Yeah. No, it's not there.
No.
No, that's a different one. So let me show you that one. That's good too. So if I go back to original window, and I right-click, I can go to my connection properties. And under Change Connection, under Options, I can use a custom color. I can say, this server is red. And that will change the bar to red. You see the status bar just changed colors from gray to red. So I use this if I'm in production and I really don't want to get fired. So just change the color. Red means stop, and then if you come to another window, you can do the same thing. You can go to Connection, Change Connection, Options, and if this is development, you can say, this is green. So green means, please execute in this window. Red means, don't touch this window, right?
What if you come up with them?
Fair enough. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I feel like I should see this right away, and I'm not seeing it. I don't know why. I feel like it's like right in front of me, and I'm just not seeing it. It's the worst when something goes off. So I thought it was text editor too, but it isn't. Oh, you're right. Thank you. Who is that? Yeah. If you didn't have a beard, I'd kiss you fondly. Okay. So this is status bar location right here, and by default it's set to bottom, and I like to put it on the top of the screen. I think it's more visible on the top. I think it draws the eye at the top too. So anyway, I change it, and then apparently I forget about it. Life is so easy with the dates table. This will be the last one because we're running out of time. Do I have any other really good ones that I think? See, I've got so many. Oh, that's a good one too. You know what? We'll do two. We'll do three. So, if my boss came to me and she said, I want to know what our sales are for the first Monday of every month. And if I said, oh, the first Monday, I'm not kidding, this is the code to figure out the first Monday of every month. If you Google, find the first Monday of every month in Transact SQL, you will get code very similar to this. And if I run this code looking for the first Mondays, all 15 lines of this, in 2010, you can look this up. These are the first Mondays of every month. January 4th, February 1st, March 1st, and so forth. And then, once I have this, I can begin the process of going to find the sales. What a pain. BI developers use a dates table. SQL developers don't always use it, but BI developers love using a dates table. And dates tables are so easy because if you have a date from like 1950 all the way to 2050, and you have every single date, you can embed in the table, give me all the Mondays, give me all the Tuesdays, give me all the Wednesdays. And if I know all the dates, it's super easy to find the first Monday of the month. Look at how just terse and self-descriptive that code is, right? If it's in this month, if it's in this year, if it's this Monday, give me the first Monday. Just a quick min function and done. Done, right? Now, I don't even have to document this code. You can look at this code and you know immediately what I'm trying to do. If you looked at this code, how many of you would immediately know what I was trying to do? Is that a mod symbol? Is that a mod symbol? Ike's crazy. Okay. Who uses mod? Only BI guys. Next one is never reinvent the wheel. So this guy's a stay-at-home dad. He's a great guy. He's my LinkedIn friend. That's about it. So he's with his kids all the time. Anyway, never reinvent the wheel. This guy, he loves SQL Server, but he had a job. He had to raise kids or something. So that's apocryphal. I'm not positive about that. But he wrote a whole bunch of CLR functions and stored procedures, and just a ton of them. And so this thing, he likes Twitter a lot, so a lot of them have to do with Twitter. But look, he said, oh, you guys want maybe a string split? Like how many of you ever get a common delimited list of values and you just split it? And you try to do that in T-SQL, and 5 years later, you're dead. You killed yourself. So, yeah, look at all these functions. Date, age, tons of things. All sorts of math issues that you might come up with. Custom conversion, tons of stuff, right? Anyway, most of it is free. And then he charges for like a few things. But it's only $200. It's a great $200, by the way. So he's got a date format that I love. And I use it all the time. It's just like, hey, let me feed the data in, give me the day, or give me the day in English. You know, he localizes everything too, so you can hand in the language that you want, and the localization is done for you. And if I execute this on the right database, you just get these formats that are all accurate. You know, you get the right way to do it, which is putting the month before the day of the year. And then you get this terrible thing that I guess the French do, and other people who don't know the right way. That's it, guys. Thanks a lot for coming. If you have any questions, I'll stay out.